I used to think that love was supposed to feel confusing. I thought that it was normal to question yourself constantly in relationships. I thought that if someone loved me, that they would eventually change for me. But looking back, I realized that I wasn't chasing love, I was chasing what felt familiar. Today, we're going to talk about how control can be disguised as love. So, I was taught from a very early age that your love had to be earned. If you wanted love, it was not unconditional. It had to be bought. It had to be bargained with, right? Love was like a bargaining chip. And it would be taken from you if you didn't do what someone wanted you to do. Or if they were upset with you, then they would withhold love or affection, right? And what I really expected love to feel like was just a really deep, warm hug. And like when you hug someone, it's like you never want to let go. And like whenever you get upset, you may be upset, right? But like you're still like, okay, but I'm still gonna go get their favorite ice cream. Or I still want to have a good day today. Like I still want to go do everything we planned, right? But growing up in my household, it was quite the opposite. Anytime um, anyone in the family didn't do what someone else, if they did disagreed or if someone didn't follow through, it was an instant um, oh, well, then I'm not going to come to your son's baseball game. Or, well, we were going to have a cookout. Now the cookout's canceled. Or, whatever we could do to hurt each other, right? It was always like, oh, well, if you're going to hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. Instead of just saying, like, hey, that hurt my feelings. Can we talk about it, right? And so I always expected love to feel just like warm and unconditional and just deep, right? Like I love very deeply. I'm a very deep person, and I'm so grateful that God made me the way I am because I am nothing like the family I came from. Absolutely nothing. By like a long shot. Like we are so polar opposite, and it's just I'm so grateful that being in that environment didn't harden my heart because watching them be so hateful and mean towards each other and then call it love really warped my sense of reality growing up. And it made me realize that I really didn't know what love was because the people in my family did not know what love was. It was very obvious. Um, my mom and my dad were the main culprits, obviously, because they were my parents, but they made it very obvious that I had to do things to earn their love. I had to do things to make them feel like I deserved it, right? It was never like a unconditional like, "Oh, well, I love you because you're my daughter. I love you because you're you. I love you because of how funny or quirky you are. I love you because of the intricate details about me, right? It was never that. It was like, "Oh, I love you because you make me look good as a parent. I love you because you listen when I tell you to do something. Like you're compliant, right? You're content with the bare minimum effort I give you. So that's why I love you, right? And obviously, when I was a child, they didn't outright say that. But now that I'm a parent myself, I can tell that that's exactly what that was because I was not defiant. They would call it defiant, but I was a child that was lost. I did not have a sense of self. I did not have an identity. I didn't know what love truly looked like because my mom would date men, but I never saw them. I saw a few of them, but she was always out, ripping and running, staying the night places, leaving us at home alone. And I never saw like what healthy love looked like. My dad ran off and got married. He didn't even let us come to their wedding, the woman that he's with now. And so it just felt like, you know what I mean? It was just like, what's going on here? Like, I'm confused, right? Um, and I always felt like I had to be earned. It just always felt like it had to be something that I had to prove myself. Like I had to prove that I'm worthy of this love. Like I had to do specific things, clean up the house, make everything nice and neat, do things that will make them happy in order to receive the love that I was looking for, in order to receive the guidance that I was looking for, right? Um, and it just became so obvious that like I was never gonna get it with them. And then obviously not having that growing up with from either one of my parents, of course I go out in the world and I started attracting the same kind of person that my parents were, the same kind of people that they dated, the same kind of people that were in the family, without even really realizing it, right? Because they obviously, try to keep everything a secret and they don't want to tell uh, their past and all their shortcomings. And so, without me even realizing it, I was picking people that were a direct reflection of what I saw growing up, what I thought and believed to be true of what love should look like, right? Um, and I had a tendency to be a people pleaser, but also a fixer. I wanted to fix everything. I wanted to fix the situation, fix the person, fix every bad thing that was going on. And it was just like, that's not my job, right? Like, I do my part, that my partner does their part, and then we come together, and now we're we're 100, now we're 200. But it was like, if they were at 20, I wouldn't mind doing the 80, right? But then whenever I was at 20, they were like, yeah, I can't pull 80. You gonna have to figure it out because I'm used to you giving a whole 100. So, you know what I mean? It was like I was always the person that was going super hard for the people that I loved. I was always going way above and beyond, and I would do it so early on so people would, because I wanted to be loved, right? So I wanted to show people like, hey, I can love you really good because I want you to love me really good. And it wasn't just like, oh, because I want to be loved, but it feels good to love people. Like, it feels genuinely good to me to make someone feel happy, to make someone feel loved, heard, seen, appreciated. And obviously, deep down, it's because I've always wanted to feel those things. And so, if I can do that for someone else, it feels amazing because it makes my heart feel warm. Because it's like, damn, like I just feel good that I have that ability, right? But I slowly realized that I was trying to fix everything, and it became very exhausting and daunting because it was just like, oh my, like, and I would get myself in situations and not even realize that, like, oh, here I go again, trying to fix somebody, trying to fix the situation. And it's like, some people need fixing, some people don't, but it's not my job, right? It's not my job to fix anybody. You know what I mean? If someone needs help, then I will help them the best that I can, but I can't fix them, right? And that was something that I really, really, really had to sit down with myself and reflect about because I started realizing, like, oh, damn, like, this is beyond the scope of what I should be doing, but I'm already neck deep in. So, like, what am I going to do? Tell them, okay, I pull out. Sorry. I resend my offer. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, unsend my offer. It's like, how do I, and then, because then I'll feel like I'm leaving them hanging. So it was just I always ended up putting myself in really awkward or bad situations because I didn't want to let the person that I loved or cared about down. And it just became such a strenuous, sad process because eventually I would take so much of myself and give it to people and they didn't care. So like I would have nothing left because they weren't pouring back into me. It was just me giving and giving and giving. And they were like, "Okay, bet. More? Oh, more? Oh, more? Oh my gosh, we have more. We're here. Like, let's go." Like, you know what I mean? It just was like they didn't care. I was just like their power bank, right? And it was felt good, but then when I realized that I wasn't getting anything in return, it wasn't reciprocal. It was like, this isn't feeling too good anymore. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't feeling too good because you guys are trying to use me. You're trying to, take me for granted, and that's not fair because you're trying to use my heart against me when I genuinely want to love you. I genuinely want to be there for you. And people just weren't able to match my depth. They weren't able to match what I was putting out. Um, I definitely ignored my own needs and wants to keep the peace a lot. In a lot of relationships, especially in my marriage, with my ex-husband, I learned to bite my tongue a lot because I just got tired of arguing. You know what I mean? It just gets tiring. It gets tiring having to constantly re-explain yourself, re-explain why this hurts, re-explain why he shouldn't be doing something, or telling him why this and that and the third. But he's a grown man. He knows what he's doing is wrong, right? But the inner child in me wanted to be seen and heard so bad that I would, try to get him to understand. And then it got to a point where like I was just like, you know what? Like I can't do this anymore because I've been ignoring myself. I'm not taking care of my body. I'm not taking care of my hair, what I eat. I'm not taking care of my mental health. I'm not taking care of uh, anything other than adulting, right? I was just like the rat race, right? Like just constant like work, business, clean the house, cook dinner, do the park with the kids, do all the stuff, which I'm not saying is bad, but it's like when you do the same thing all the day, like every day, all the time, and you realize that your ex-husband would rather be out at a bar or cheating on you or at a studio recording music and spending $300 that he doesn't have to try to chase this rap life when I'm at home stuck with both kids, postpartum, breastfeeding. My son has a medical condition. I'm over here like literally crashing out, not like screaming at the kids, but like crashing out mentally inside because I'm like, what the fuck? Like, when am I gonna get a break? Like, when do I get a chance to like relax and be Lexi, right? Because I'm mom all the time, and I'm wifey all the time, and I'm a daughter all the time, and I'm a sister all the time, and I'm a friend all the time, and I'm a coworker all the time, and I'm everything to everyone else, but nothing to myself. And I couldn't do it anymore. I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I can't do it because you guys are willing to see me suffer. You're willing to see me lose myself in the midst of taking care of you. And you don't even care. And you don't want to pour back into me. You don't give a fuck about trying to um, be reciprocal, right? It's just all about like what you can take from me. And so I knew like this is something that like where did I learn that at, right? Like where did I start learning this behavior and how did it get this far? Because we know it doesn't feel good. We know that we shouldn't be doing that, but then we give in, right? Because we're like, okay, well, I want to be loved, so I'm just going to put up with whatever the fuck he does because I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be single. I don't want to, whatever the reason is, but for me it was a lot of reasons and that was one of them. Like definitely like, not wanting to be alone, insecure, terrible attachment styles, trauma bonding, right? We had a lot of trauma. We bonded over trauma. We bonded over a lot of stuff that just wasn't healthy. And instead of being nurtured, I was stomped into the ground after having two of his children and having the first grandbaby of my family. You know what I mean? It was just like it just got to a point where it was like, okay, like y'all actually got the game fucked up. So some red flags that I didn't recognize was feeling guilty when I set boundaries. When I started like really deeply diving into therapy, I started realizing that I felt bad saying no. I felt bad, like I felt like I owed someone something. And I again learned that from my childhood. I was never allowed to say no. Like I didn't have they did not allow me to have a voice. And so when I did say no, it was like a whole tantrum. It's like, the whole like you don't love me or you don't this or you don't that or you're a bad daughter, you're a bad friend, you're a bad wife, you're a bad whatever. But it's like, how many times I said yes? I said yes a million, 2 million, 3 million times, and you're worried about the few times I said no? And then I ended up saying yes anyway. So the no's ended up turning into yeses because you made me feel so guilty. You guilt tripped me, and I fell for it, right? And so you kind of start understanding that, like, you can set a boundary, but the boundary could be wobbly if you're not really ready to set the boundary or if you're so scared of what the repercussion can be. But what I had to learn is that people who can't respect your boundaries are not people that you should have in your life. People who respect your boundaries are the people that genuinely love you and they understand the boundary, right? They may not agree with it, but they understand it. And so they will respect your boundary because they're like, okay, I love you and I respect your boundaries and I'm going to listen to that, right? They're not going to try to, do the whole pride and ego parade and, well, it's not that big of a deal. And, the gaslighting and manipulating. It's just like, it doesn't matter what you think though, because I'm doing what's best for me. I'm doing what's best for what I think is for my highest good. You can't come along and tell me what you think is best. It's not your life. But my whole life, I had people trying to run my life. I had people trying to be me. I had people trying to control every decision I made, control how I viewed things, controlled how I made decisions, controlled how I acted, controlled how I showed up in situations because of all the negative self-talk that they would say to themselves or that the negative talk that they would project onto me. And it just got to a point where it was just like, okay, like I'm just going to go ahead and go over here because it seems like every time I try to set a boundary or stand up for myself, I'm the bad guy. I'm the villain. And I don't get how that's possible. Because when you guys say something, it's whatever you say goes. But now when I say something, it's, oh, well, that's dumb. Or, oh, I'm not doing that. Or, oh, laugh it off. It's like, okay. Um, Growing up, I realized also that I felt so responsible for everyone else's emotions. I'm so observant. Like when I was a child, I had to study body language. I had to study like this human behavior because that was my survival. Like learning how to read the room, learning how to read people's body language, the facial expressions, learning how to see what they aren't saying, right? Because you can say, like, hey, yeah, but behind that smile, I can feel the energy and I can tell that your body language is off. It's not a happy body language. It's very sluggish. It's very whatever, right? And so whenever people were sad, I'm like, is it me? Did I do something wrong? Is it what did I do? And it's like whole time they just had a bad day. Whole time they got their favorite sub and they forgot it at the store because they went to the bathroom and they forgot it or stupid shit. And I would always be like, make it about me. Like, oh, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? Is it me? Is it something I did? Is it something? And like sometimes it was, but then a lot of the times it wasn't. And I felt so responsible to make them happy again because I just didn't want to see people like I didn't want to see people sad, and I didn't want people to be sad around me because it would make me self-conscious. Like, are you mad because of me? Are you mad because of something I said? Because a lot of people when I grew up, they would feel some kind of way, but they would never say anything. And then like when you get in an argument a couple months later, a couple weeks later, a couple days later, they start bringing up shit from the day that, and I'm like, I knew you was upset. I knew you were feeling some kind of way. Why didn't you just say something? Like, what the hell? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, so you decided to just be weird to me, not tell me that you were upset, not like nothing. And then you just get mad and then you want to spew it out and make it like a fucking a bullet to the chest. It's like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? It's just like that's so petty. And I still have a problem. Well, I've definitely gotten better, but over explaining or just oversharing, period, has been something that I always struggled with because it's like when you're a child, you overshare, you over explain because you want to make sure everyone has every single detail so they can't try to say like fill in the holes with any fucking lies or whatever, right? It's like you want to be heard and seen and understood, so you try to be super honest. You try to be an oversharer. You try to be an over-explainer, but all that really does is give the enemy more ammunition to use against you, right? Because when I was doing all those things, I was always made fun of for, oh, you're too honest, or oh, you can't lie. You're a terrible liar. My mom used to say that you're a terrible liar. Well, I would hope so. Do you want your daughter to be a good liar? You know what I mean? It was just like, what? You know what I mean? It's like, I shouldn't even have to lie to you, but I'm lying to you to protect myself and to protect you because I don't trust you. Like, you know what I mean? It was like she wanted to be in everything all the time and it just got to a point where I had to over explain everything all the time because like she wanted every single little detail, every little single nitty gritty thing down to the D detail. But she masked it as like being my best friend and like we're super lovey dovey and oh I love you so much. And whole time she's like just trying to get intel. She's just trying to like use this against me later. And it just like is mind boggling just even thinking about it. Um, and when I was younger, I definitely ignored my intuition. I ignored the red flags. I ignored my discernment. I ignored it all because I wanted to be loved. Something, you know what I mean? It's just crazy what you will do for love. And I put myself in a lot of compromising positions, not having my intuition and discernment on point because I just didn't care. I got to a point where I didn't care anymore. I was just like, the world is so cold. I'm so tired of always dealing with these heartless people. I don't know how else to like really maneuver through life because I've given my all to so many people and all I get left back with is crumbs. And they walk away like nothing happened. They walk away like they don't give a fuck. They walk away like whatever. And it's like, all right, cool. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just, it gets to a point where you're just like, I don't have the energy to keep playing this game. I don't have the energy to ignore my intuition anymore. I don't have that because when you ignore your intuition and discernment, you put yourself in a lot of situations that you really shouldn't be in. And you don't know it until it's too late because you're already assed out and you're like, fuck, like I should have probably listened to myself. damn, right? Um, and not only was I having trouble with my discernment and intuition, but I always wanted to shrink myself. I always wanted to water myself down to make others feel comfortable because I felt like, well, if I just can fit in, if I can just, not love so hard and not be so funny and goofy and whimsical, people will like me more, right? Such an ass backwards thing to think, right? But that's what I was thinking because I'm like, I'm such a lover girl. I'm so open. I'm so honest. I'm so, excuse me, I'm so fun. I'm so all the things. And it just felt like no matter who I came around, it just like my love and light brought out their demons because it reminded them of a time when they used to be that way before life swallowed them whole. And they wanted me to also be swallowed whole. And it was just like, you're not gonna do that. No, there was a time where I definitely like calmed down because it felt so destabilizing, especially in your young teen years when you're learning maturity and you're learning your period and the hormones and the all the stuff. It's like you're going through so much. And like when you're like a child, you feel like the world is ending. When like something happens, like even if it's just something small, it's like you feel like the world is literally ending. And imagine you feel like that when your ice cream falls on the floor, but then imagine that when you got sexual assault in the mix. Imagine that when you got parents that disguise love as control, control as love, right? Like they would just constantly play this cat and mouse game. It's always a mind game. It was always, oh, so you scratch my back, I scratch yours, but then they would never scratch my back. And so it became obvious that everyone wanted to leave me out in the cold. And I just got tired of always having to shrink myself to make other people feel comfortable because it wasn't working. It was like, okay, if I'm myself, people don't like me. If I'm trying to, blend in, people also don't like me. So it's like, if that at this point, I'm just gonna be myself. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, why continue to be like water myself down to make others comfortable when I can just be myself? Like, that just doesn't, you know what I mean? It's just like, The turning point for me when I realized that the relationships I was in was not love was when I became a mom. It was really easy for me to kind of like give people excuses and do all the things, right? But then when I became a mom, it became so obvious that there were so many things that my parents failed me at, right? And people will say like, "Oh, well, give your parents grace. Like it was their first time being a parent. There's no parenting book." But will always say this is that I didn't have a parenting book either. I'm a phenomenal mother because of all the trauma that I've been through. I choose to walk a different path. Instead of continuing down the same path and having generational curses, I chose to simply start over. I chose to create a new path because I knew that the way I was raised and the way that they showed love was not love. And it directly reflected how I grew up. It directly affected how I acted, the people I picked to hang around, the people I dated. I mean, it changed my entire life. And when I became a mom, I vowed to myself that I would never, ever allow my kids to endure that. I didn't want my daughter to endure the same things I did, and I didn't want my son to become the men that I dated and think that that was normal. I also recognized that peace shouldn't feel unfamiliar. It was one of those things where when I was with my ex-husband, when he betrayed me in the worst ways when I was pregnant and postpartum, I knew that there was no going back, right? He cheated on me our entire marriage, and I knew from the from pretty much the beginning, but I was just so insecure and didn't have a backbone then that I wanted to just like, oh, we're gonna work it out. We're gonna stay together. And also that's what I grew up around. Everyone in my family was cheated on. Everybody. Every female in my family was married and got cheated on. Or they was doing the cheating. It was one or the other, right? And it just became like a thing where like, oh yeah, they cheat, they steal, they this and that, but we're still married, we're still gonna be together because the older generations don't believe in getting divorced, right? They'll do anything to say they have a man. They'll keep the man, they don't care how piece of shit he is, but as long as they can say they're married, who cares, right? But I just didn't want to live that life. I was in a very abusive, toxic, narcissistic, domestic violence situation. It was a lot going on. And I knew that when I had my children and I was postpartum and I had so much going on with my son who had met his medical condition, he had to undergo surgery at 2 months old. And it was a lot. It was very, very stressful. It was very, very stressful. And I don't even know how he got the medical condition that he has because no one in our family has it unless they do and no one told me. That's probably a possibility too. Um, but I realized like we're yelling and screaming and things are breaking and I'm having to defend myself with a knife because I can't trust that my ex-husband isn't going to hurt me. I can't trust the fact that he isn't going to do something volatile in front of my children. And then it got to a point where he didn't even care if it was in front of the kids. And so it just got to a point where I was like, you know what? I can't, I can no longer do this. I can no longer continue to be in this situation. I can no longer continue to be a part of this play that we got going on because it's like I'm better than that. And my kids truly, truly saved my life, to say the least. Like, that's an understatement. Now I've learned that healthy boundaries are so important. And what healthy love really looks like for me now is when someone can respect your boundaries, right? It's when someone can love you unconditionally. They don't have a whole list of things that they need you to do or act like or pretend to be in order for them to love you. They just love you as you are. They don't want to change you. They don't want to fix you. They don't want to, make you be like the girl they were with 4 years ago. They see you for who you are and they love you for just as you are, like literally just as you are. Um, and healthy love doesn't require fear because when I was growing up, well, I called him my stepdad, but he was with my mom for about over a decade. So he would always say how he grew up and how he basically was raising his kids and how they raised us was that like fear turns into love. And I was like, not so much. It's not how that works. Fear turns into hatred because when you make a child fear you, intentionally all the time on purpose because you want dominance and control and you think that's what love is, that's not love. You want compliance. You want them to lay down and be a little lapdog, a little teacher's pet because you don't want to actually let them grow into their own individual person. You just want them to listen to everything you say without questioning anything, without asking questions, without anything. And it's just like, that's not reality. Excuse me. Another thing I noticed is that healthy love requires true honesty, true integrity, true humility, respect, because often times I realized like none of those things were happening in any relationship I was in. Uh, there was no like reciprocation when it came to any of those things, and so you have to really understand that when you're not being honest, it's like you're already when the trust is broken, it's really hard to come back from that. Anyone, if you've been in a relationship and the trust is broken, you know how hard it is to truly fully get over that if you even do, because a lot of people don't. A lot of people can't like actually go back and be like, okay, I fully forgive you, because most times it's something really bad and then you're like, it's hard to really like backtrack. For a long time, I thought love meant sacrificing myself, sacrificing my wants, my needs, putting everybody else before myself just to make everyone around me feel good, loved, and appreciated. But now I'm realizing that that was never true, right? You need to be able to put yourself first and choose yourself first so you can pour into the people that you truly love. And when they're also doing that, then you both are pouring into each other and it's reciprocal. And it doesn't feel like you have resentment because you're always the one that's going the extra mile. You're always the one who's doing the thing that no one else will do. Today that I'm learning is that real love doesn't ask you to abandon yourself. It doesn't ask you to change who you are. It doesn't ask you to, you know, change who you are for the sake of being loved. It doesn't ask you to abandon yourself just to have that man, just to have that relationship, just to walk around and say that you're married, but you're really sad. Excuse me, y'all. Confirmations. And so I just really wanted to I wanted you guys to think about that because so often people forget that healing is not just about leaving unhealthy patterns behind, it's about learning what healthy love actually looks like. And you can't do that when you're in this constant loop of what you think love looks like, but when all of that, what you think it looks like is trauma, pain, turmoil, neglect, abuse, um, gaslighting, narcissistic tactics, love bombing, all the things. It's like that's not normal. It's not normal. We became very desensitized to that because that's what we grew up around. That's what we saw our families do. That's what we saw our friends' families do. That's what we saw everybody do. But it's just not normal. And we have to say, like, okay, enough is enough, right? We have to be able to say, okay, this is not what I want to stand for. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm not going to put up with it. And if I have to be alone, then I'll be alone. That's fine, right? But I will find my person one day. It just won't be today. So I just hope that you guys really sit back and think about that and just really, you know, reflect on your own relationships and just reflect on your life and the patterns that you've seen over the course of your time, right? But I will leave you with one question just for you to think about and reflect upon. Is if have you ever realized that what you thought was love was actually something else? Because we often sometimes think that this is love, the abuse, the neglect, all the things. But a lot of times it's a very toxic cycle that it's hard to break because you are trying to figure out what isn't going right. Why does it seem like this is just can never work out for me? Why does it always seem like these relationships never last? Why do I keep getting my heart broken? Why do I keep dating the same person in a different body? Right? So just really think about that and comment below. Let me know what you guys think, and um, I'll talk to you next Wednesday. I hope you guys have a good week, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Bye.